Hello, welcome to Lucy's Big Beautiful World of Painting. I have something very different today to show you, and what I did was I found a book at a yard sale. I think I paid 50 cents for this book, and it had some really nice pictures in it, and it's 32 Dutch windmills, okay, so it was a bargain. I figured, oh, sometime I'll want to paint one of these. So what I did was I found the one that I thought might be the easiest, and it happens to be a 1400 from the year 1420, a Dutch windmill, okay? And what I did was I traced it on with gray transfer paper, and I just had a little piece of wax paper. I did just a really quick, you know, tracing of it, okay? Nothing fancy, because I want to do my rendition of it. I had no intention of following this exactly, just wanted to kind of get an idea from it, and I think it came out pretty good, okay? So that being said, I'll put this aside and let me get my paint out. Okay, so I'm using a limited palette. I'm going to be mixing up these colors. It's a variety of Deco Art acrylic paints, and I first started out with a chalky gesso because I wanted my background to be very smooth today. So even though this Frederick's canvas that I'm using, which is an 11 by 14 red label canvas, already has a primer on it. I wanted it even smoother this time, so I put the chalky gesso on it. All right, so I'm just going to get started painting. I think I told you everything that I needed to say, besides my brushes, of course, which are the Deco Art Traditions brushes, okay? So now, I did the sky in the off-white color, because that's how it was in the book, and I like the way it looked. It gives it that kind of old look, all right? And right now I'm using a big number one brush, and I'm going into this very creamy color, all right? So I'm just gonna start to get a little bit of this on in here. Now, I'm not going to worry if I cover up a little of this on the edges, because I'm going to be painting over it, okay? So this is gonna be like the first layer. I wanna get some paint on, and then I'll start putting in some little details and all. So I'm gonna hold my palette up to my right here, so this way you can see better when I'm painting. And right here I have this little tiny bit of the phthalo blue, okay? I think this is the phthalo. We'll have it on at the end there so you know which color it is. And once I mix this color, because it does have a little yellow in it, could turn a little green, and that's okay. It's gonna make it look a little bit older, a little bit more vintagey. So all I'm doing now is, without even cleaning that brush, just going to blend it together. So you do have a few minutes with the acrylic paint to blend, okay, before it starts to dry. And we do have blending mediums that you can use if you need it to stay wet longer, or you could use a little bit of water, okay? Now, again, I want you to take a peek at that. Tiny bit of blue, and it's gonna go a long way. Now, I wanted a little bluer in that corner, so now when I go back to get more blue, I'll take a little bit more, all right? Here we go. And you can see just a tiny bit, a little tiny bit more than before, because I want it a little darker up there. So this paint goes a long way. That's my point with that. It really does. I hardly need any of that rich pigment to get that nice blue color. So I'm not going to do it exactly. I'm not going to try to paint it exactly the way I did it there, but I am going to try to mimic it a little bit, just so you can get the idea on how I did it. So you can go to any book that you have, take a picture out. If you have to trace it or do a rough drawing of it, and just go ahead and start to paint. As you're painting, you can adjust it a little, okay? There we go. So I think that's kind of looking pretty good already. I'm going to get a little bit more of this cream color, because I am going to go back down to about here, which is where the land and the trees will start. And I can go back and get a little more blue in there. I do see a little bit of tint of blue in there. And just to make it a little different than my other one, I might actually put a little bit more. So here I have some graphite lines. I'm not worried about that, because I'm going to paint right over it. This paint will cover, and if it happens to be too dark and it doesn't cover, that's okay. I'll go back, put another layer on it. So in here is going to peek through the windmill. All right, so I'm getting a little bit in there. And I'm going to go to a little bit of blue, pop a little bit of blue right in here, mix it with a little bit of this creamy color, and let's see what we get in there. I don't want to do too much, because I want it to dry so I can get my other elements on. All righty, And like I said, I'm going to do a first layer and then I'll go over and put more layers on. As time permits, we can make our adjustments. A little more blue, maybe a little blue in here. And that would be it for the sky background, okay? I think that's pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set my brush in the water. Again, I say it every show. We don't want the paint to dry in the brush. It will ruin the brush. The ferrule especially cannot get paint in here, okay? So I'm just going to push it back and forth in there. We can let it sit for a few minutes, but never for a long time, okay? So what I'd like to do next, oh, I see one thing I have to do. I have to go back. So what I'm doing is I'm going to just squeeze this water out of here, all right? So in between these parts should be sky, and I didn't go in there. So I'm just going back to my palette real fast, and I'll just come in here and get some color in there. I can still see the lines, so I have a little guide, all right? There we go. Just want to make sure. I can see those lines. I'm not sure if you can see them, but I can. So it's more important that I see them right now. All righty? So here we go. I'm going to go to another brush. So I think the first thing I'll do is I will put those lines in there just so you can see better which way I'm going with this. And I did this in this nice rich dark brown, okay? Now, I may want this brown even a little bit darker, so I'll take a little tiny bit of that blue, and that's going to darken it up a little bit. Almost turn it like a black, okay? A grayish black. So I have this nice muddy color, and I am using an angle brush, and this is a 3/8. I always have to look. Now, what I'm doing is I'm really making this a nice chisel edge because I have to get those straight lines. Now, the angle I'm standing on, we're going to see how lucky I get to get some straight lines, so we'll give it a shot. All right, so here I go. I'm going to anchor myself just a little bit, and hopefully one side you'll be able to see. I know I'll be blocking it a little. Let me try to move my hand up, and I'll just start to put a straight line in. And there we go. So what I did was I used this chisel edge and especially this edge, and I got a nice straight line. Can't guarantee all my lines will be straight right now, but thank goodness I did one at least to show you. All right, here we go. There's another one and across. All right, and I'll go back to this side now. I can see my lines a little. That side. That side, I didn't run out of paint yet. Now I'm starting to, so I'll go back again and touching it there, and this one on the bottom. Okay, now you can see there's some lines going in between, and I'll come back and do those now. So again, I'm just going to pick up my palette. You can see how I'm pulling this paint, okay? Taking a little tiny bit of blue, and again, very flat chisel edge, okay? You need a good brush for this. You can't buy brushes at the craft store and expect to get a chisel edge like this, okay? You really do need a better brush for this. So what I'll do here is I'm gonna put some thin lines going across, okay? And a couple down here, maybe 3, and some up here. So I'm just trying to use the tip, okay? When I pushed a little harder, it gets a little wider. I didn't want to push, but the angle I'm on, it's a little difficult, but I think that you get the idea of it. And that's the main point of my show, is so you can learn a little bit and then do it on your own. The other thing I say every single show is make sure you take your time. You don't have to go as fast as I am. If you happen to be watching me on cable, just watch the whole show, and then you can always go and look the show up and then watch it on the internet. So you can, you know, shut it down and maybe do a couple steps and then go back to it. So now again, I'm using the tip and I'm just making these lines. Okay? And one more down here, one more place to do lining. There we go. Okay, so now you can kind of see this windmill starting, all right? Now, while I have this color on, I still don't have to wash it. I'm just gonna wipe it off a little because I wanna go to the regular brown, and I'm just dipping a little in there, and I'm just going to start to fill in the rest, okay? So these parts of this painting are a little smaller, all right? So I just have to be a little more careful. At first, I wanna get the color, just some color in, the lights and the darks, then I can go back and put the details and straighten a little bit of it out. See, I'm going to cover this right up and even this out a little bit. And I'm just following my lining a little bit, okay? So it really starts to look, you know, better when I start to put on more of the detail. So for now, we call it the ugly stage, okay? There is an ugly stage of every painting that it doesn't look so great. You just kind of have to go along with it until it starts to look better after you add more color and all right? So what I'm going to do now is I could just wipe out my brush again, and I'm going to start to go in some of my other colors. And we will list them so you'll know what colors I'm using. And with a painting like this, it's okay if you don't have the exact colors. Just buy a couple of the Deco Art colors, and then you could just mix them together, and anything that's close would be fine. So I'm just going to come across this way, and I need a little more paint. You can see it's a little dry, so I'm just going back and getting more paint. All right, just getting some paint on for now. Like I said, I don't have to worry if I cover up that little door. I'm mixing in with now a little of the cream color because that side was a little bit brighter on that side. So I'm just kind of blending it on here now. I'm not mixing it ahead of time, and I can go back because I want to get an illusion of some little bricks and all. So for now, I just want to get some of this color on. There we go. A little bit of color there. I'll wipe off my brush again, get a little bit more of that nice rich color, kind of go in the middle here. All right, so you can see I'm trying to use the angle of the brush. All right, there we go. I could put more paint, but I don't want to because I want it to dry a little bit. This way when I go and put the bricks on, it'll already be dry. It won't smear around as much. So I could go back and forth like I am, and it depends on time, but I can keep going back and forth. Now on this side, I do want to get a little bit darker. So I'm just going to, same brush, same paint, just adding a little darkness to it. And I'm going to come over on this side and do a shade darker. Alrighty. So I really don't have a light source in this painting, but it just kind of gives the look of a little roundness to the windmill. I'll just edge it like this a little bit. So you can see this is not something that you really need to know any strokes for. You don't really have to have any skill for this. I drew out the picture a little bit, and I'm just using some common sense to paint it in, meaning lights and darks next to each other. So light and getting darker and darker. Okay, so I'll come back in again, get a little more of this color in here. And then I'll go on to another part. We'll let that tack up a little bit. And then I'll come back. So I'm just kind of rubbing it back and forth, trying to get a little bit of that color in there, okay? There we go. So it's starting to, you can start to see that it looks a little bit round, all right? Now, let's see. Next, I think what we'll do is we'll go on to some of these trees here before I get to the, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to do this bottom first. This way the paint will dry a little bit before I put some of those wildflowers and all on it. So I'm going to just wash out my big brush again, just a little bit. All right, I want to dry it off. I don't want to have a lot of water in there. I'm going to throw my paper towel out right away because otherwise the paint tends to get all over. I'm pretty sloppy sometimes. So now I'll go into this sap green. I'm using the big brush, all right? So what I want to do is I just want to get some of this sap green on here. I will come back again and start adding those colors, but I do want to get some of this sap green on. So this way I can see the depth of it a bit more and see where I want to add color to. All right, so all I'm doing is painting back and forth. You can see, no special strokes or anything, just filling it in where I see the land. And all the other colors will come on top of it, all right? I'm not worried that I'm covering up the lines. That's fine, all right? And there's like a little door that goes underneath that windmill, I guess to the bottom floor. And I'll come up on my lines here. So just covering up my lines, all right? Get more sap green. Now this paint goes a long way, and you know, I always take out too much paint because I don't want to take the time to open up the paint if I run out on the show. So I always take too much. So just take what you need in little bits and then take more out as you need it, okay? So don't do what I do and put all this paint out that you probably won't use at first, okay? Use it little by little. So again, I don't want to put too much on here because I want it to tack up a little bit so I can get the other grasses and all on top of it. There we go. So we'll leave that just like that. And I'm putting my brush back in the water again. Now, let me get another brush here. This one is a filbert brush, okay? And I'm gonna put in those trees. Now, I think I'll pick up my palette again. All right, so with the trees, you can see that I did a dark color and then I did a light color in the shades of blue, all right? So again, I'll take some of this rich blue, okay? And I'm just gonna add a little bit of the cream color to it because I want the lighter blue to represent trees that are in the back, okay? So I'm putting a darker color in front so the lighter blue looks like they're in the back, okay? So then I'm just gonna come over here, maybe right about here, and dab some on. I'm only giving an illusion of a tree. I'm not trying to paint the formal tree, just giving an illusion. There we go, all right? And I think I'll do one more, and it's even lighter than the one I did before, so I could add a little, make that a little tiny bit darker, and even do this one a tiny shade darker. All right, making it a little bit bigger. This way you can see a little better. And like I said, you can see what I'm doing. I'm just using the brush and kind of just dabbing it, all right? Dabbing. Now, I want to put the darker trees in front, so I'll go right to my blue. I'll just move that over. Gonna add some brown in there. All right, can even add a little bit of the green, and that'll really give it a nice rich color. Back to the green, back to the brown. So you can see I'm just mixing it right here, and then we're gonna test it and see what we get. Oh, and that's pretty good. It's kind of like a green shade with a little blue, and I think that's fine. So going right over a little bit of this light blue. And there we go. All right, so you can see now that other tree looks like it's behind it. And we'll make another little smaller one in here. Now, everybody knows, if you watch my shows, that I do try to stick to that odd number rule, okay? Because I think that works the best, too. You know, for the people, when people look at your painting and it's an odd number of, you know, things that you have in your painting, they tend to look all over the painting. If it's an even number, it kind of draws the eye in just to one spot. So in this case, I want everybody looking all over. So I'm going to do 5 trees, okay? So do one more little one over here. And I can come back and I can adjust the color and change it. All right, but for now, just want to show you, I wanted to at least show you how I do dark and light. And these trees do look like they're in the background now, okay? So while I have this color on, it's kind of like this bluish green color. I think what I'll do is I'll go over here, and in here I had a little bit of this color, okay? So you can see I'm just kind of painting in the lines, just like coloring in a coloring book. Okay, I'm going to get a little more paint. It got a little bit dry. And to me that looks a little dark, but I think it might be okay. So I'm just painting in the lines, all right? And like I said, if I see the canvas showing through, I can go back, put another layer on. This is just the first layer. Then I'll be coming back and doing some more lining and some highlights. So now I'm gonna go and get some brown, little bit of the blue, mix that up. I wanna get a dark color, even darker. I'm gonna come in and do this little doorway here in like a grayish color. All right, while I have that on, I'll come up here. Now you can see the shape of the door is round and I have a filbert, so see how perfectly that works? Try to use the shape of the brush to fit your shapes in your painting. It'll be much easier for you, especially for beginners, all right? So, my little windows up there. So I'm just gonna kind of hold my brush in there. The little windows, I'm gonna go back to a square brush, okay? And I'm gonna wipe that off, it's a little wet. And I can go back to my square brush and, oh, my paint dried, so that's okay. Gonna come over, mix up a little bit more. A little bit of the blue, a little bit of the dark brown. And I have my square brush and we'll see if that fits in there, okay? So let's see, I could make that window the same size. There we go, same size as the brush. See, that worked out pretty good. This one, maybe I'll just try to use the tip to get a little bit in there, okay? Now I am going to outline a little bit more. So I'm just changing that color a little bit and then I can outline again, Okay, so what I do want to do is get some brick in there. Now, this color might be a little bit too dark. I can add a little bit of cream, and let's see what I get. To me, that looks a little bit too green, okay? So I'll add a little brown to that. And I'm still in the green family, so if that's the case, I'm gonna just wash out my brush a little bit. I'm gonna wipe it on a paper towel, get that water out, and I will go back to just the straight brown this time. Okay, and I'll use the straight brown. I just want to come in here and just make these dabs. Okay, this is just going to give a little bit of an illusion of some brick on the side. Okay, there we go, some dabs. Now, I'll wipe off my brush again. I'm just wiping it underneath. I'm holding my paper towel under my palette. I'm going to go to my lighter brown. It's a pretty color like cinnamon. And I'm going to come in and do some dabs here. And you'll be able to see them even though the background color is the same. Okay, and I'm just covering a little bit. Just a little, like I said, a little bit of an illusion of brick. And now we have some lighter brick. So I only wiped my brush out and I'm just mixing it up and making a lighter color with the same. Got a little green in there, that's okay. And here we go. I'm just going to come in and put some of this light in between like this. All right, so I think that kind of gives a nice little illusion that there's some texture. Okay, so that's what I'm really trying to do, is a little texture. And I'll do the same thing while I have this color here. I can come in and paint that top a little. So really what I'm doing now is I'm just changing the color back and forth, dark, light, dark, light. It doesn't have to be exact. The idea is to get dark and light next to each other. And that's how you're going to get the depth and all. Okay, again, of course, at home you will take your time, but you can see what I'm doing is I'm just filling it in. All right, I did go a little slower when I did my practice painting at home. And what's good about doing the practice painting is when you don't like something, you know, you can change it when you do your original, you know, when you want to work on your masterpiece. It's always good to work out the problems before you get to it. All right, so now I'm going into this dark blue again. I'm going to add some brown, a little tiny bit of green because I just want this dark, dark color. A little more blue. All right, I'm just trying to change the color back and forth. I didn't want to have a big palette of colors today. I wanted to show you how we can improvise with what we have. I'm going to come in here, and I just want it to be darker than that color in the back of it, and it's not that much darker. So what I can do is, very simply, I could just lighten that. So I can take a little tiny bit of the cream color and mix it in, and then I can come back again and see if that lightened it a little bit. Not quite enough. I can see a little bit of a difference, but I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that difference. So I will come in and lighten it again, and I will come back and get some light in here, okay? And I'm wiping my brush off, and I'll just blend that in a little bit just to give an illusion that it's lighter than the rest of it. And that door needs to be a little bit darker, and that's something I can do in a little while. So what I'd like to do is go on to the grasses now, all right? Now the grasses are pretty easy, all right? And what I'll use for the grasses is a mop brush, okay? So this mop brush is a blender mop. And very simply, the same thing that I did here by changing the colors back and forth is what I'll do here. So I need a darker green. So I'll take some brown. I'll just move it over here. I'll take some sap green, mix it together. I want to make it even darker. Take a little blue, little brown. Okay, and I made this nice dark color. So now what I can do is I could just come in here and separate the land a little. Okay, I'm just pulling up, just to get a little bit of an illusion, okay, that maybe it's some grasses. Maybe we can separate a little more down here. Okay, so this will help separate a little. All right, there we go. And underneath here, I want to cover up the bottom of those trees. That'll make it look like they're even more in the background, okay? I can just rub a little bit here, make it dark. Over here, I'd like to have a little bit of dark, okay? See what I'm doing? I'm just pulling the brush up. Could even go right in front here, even cover up a little bit of this bottom, all right? I didn't get the details in that. We'll see if I can get to it and get some details in there. All right, here we go. So now you can see there's some depth in the land, all right? So I'll just wipe my brush on a paper towel, and I'll go to some of this color, the brown, and we'll come back in here. I'll come back and just lift up some of this here and there. Okay. So, like I said, I only used the painting, the picture in the book as a guide, and I kind of just did my own thing. I just want to show you the lesson today is if you see a picture you like, don't be afraid just to try it, okay? Just give it a shot. Maybe you won't like the first one you do. That's okay. Then you go back and do it again. So here and there now, you can see, I'm just getting some other color in. I'll even go to the light color. Okay, I hope that you'll give some of these lessons a try. Oh, we don't want it looking like snow, okay? So I'm gonna tone that down. So what I did is I'm just using the brush, I'm toning it down, using the brush as it is, mixing in some other colors. I didn't want it looking like snow. So this is just gonna separate it, all right? So it does look, I know it looks a little bit sloppy now, and I would fine tune it and do more details, neaten it up, all right? Just want to get the lesson out so you can see what I'm doing. I did put some little wildflowers in there. Wildflowers, all I did was take the tip of the brush like this, and I came in and I dabbed in a circle, and that's just an illusion. Okay, a little bit of an illusion. So the only thing that I would do last is I would come back in and do some detail on the little hole there in the land, okay? I almost said bridge. So very simply, I would just take the dark brown and same thing. I would come in and do a little bit of outlining, okay? Of course, like I said, take your time. You can do this much neater. I just want to show you how all you have to do is go back between the colors, light, dark, mix them together as you see fit, okay? So you can see it's starting to come along. Now you also can see, yes, it needs a little more work, okay? It does need more work, but this is simply how you can find any picture, any place, print it out, and just go for it, all right? You'll take your time. I must have said that 5 times today. The slower you go, the better, all right? So I think that is about it. You can see that if I was gonna be doing more, I would change the color a little. Maybe I would put some bricks in here and all right? I would just give a little illusion of some bricks and do some details. I would neaten up a little, straighten some edges out, put more grasses in, all right? So that's how to go about picking any picture from any book, the internet, anything that you see, and trying just to get it on canvas. It's a great way to learn. So that's it for me today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please take a look at my other shows.